Welcome to Alter Health, the epigenetic code. This is where we talk about the science of how your life shapes your genes and how your body can change when you change the conditions around it. Real stories, real science, and real answers. Let's go. I want you to picture a moment from this morning, something completely ordinary. The first sip of coffee, the way the light came through the window when you opened the curtains, a short conversation with somebody in your house, the first scroll through your phone, the first time today you noticed your shoulders were already tight. Pick one of those moments and hold it in your head. Now I want to tell you what happened inside your body during that single moment. Not what it felt like, what actually happened biologically in real time in the cells that were doing the work of being you. Take the sip of coffee. Within seconds, caffeine molecules crossed the lining of your stomach and entered your bloodstream. Within a few more seconds, they were in every part of your body, including your brain, where they blocked the receptors that normally tell you to feel tired. Your liver started gearing up to break them down. Your adrenal glands started producing cortisol in response. Your pancreas adjusted insulin output because caffeine affects blood sugar. Your heart rate shifted upward by a small amount. And your blood vessels in some parts of the body constricted, in others relaxed. And inside the cells of your liver, your brain, your muscles, certain genes that respond to caffeine began to express themselves differently. All of this from one sip. All of this in under 2 minutes. Or take this short conversation. If it was a calm conversation, your vagus nerve received the signals from another person's voice, face, body, and sent calming messages to your heart and your gut. Your nervous system stayed in regulation. Cells that had been quietly tense relaxed slightly. If the conversation was tense, even a small amount, the opposite happened. Stress hormones released within seconds. Your immune cells received the message that something might be wrong. Your gut slowed down. Your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, got slightly less blood for the next 20 minutes. Or take the scroll through your phone. The bright light entering your eyes told your brain something about what time it was supposed to be. Your circadian clock adjusted slightly. The dopamine system in your brain registered each new image, each new piece of information, and tuned itself for more. Cortisol patterns shifted. The pupils in your eyes worked harder than they would have in natural light. Tiny micro-stress responses fired in your body depending on what you were looking at, even if you were not aware of feeling stressed. Or take something you might not have thought about at all. Yesterday, maybe you stopped at a gas station. You stood there for 2 minutes while the tank filled up. You didn't feel anything. You didn't think anything of it. But during those 2 minutes, you breathed in benzene, toluene, and a handful of other volatile organic compounds. They crossed the lining of your lungs in seconds. They entered your bloodstream within minutes. Your liver started working to detoxify them, using up specific nutrients and energy to do so. Some of those compounds, particularly benzene, can directly damage DNA in cells that are dividing, which is part of why long-term exposure to gasoline fumes is a recognized health risk. 2 minutes. No conscious experience of anything happening. A measurable biological event. Now take the opposite. You walked past a park on the way home. You looked at a tree for 10 seconds. Just looked at it. The fractal patterns of the branches against the sky triggered calming response in your visual cortex that has been measured in studies. Your blood pressure dropped slightly, your nervous system shifted just a touch toward parasympathetic. Cortisol dipped, the chemicals being sent to your DNA in that 10-second window were the opposite of what was being sent at the gas station. 10 seconds, a measurable biological event in the other direction. Every one of these moments, every single one, ended at the same place, at your DNA, at the chemical layer above your DNA, the layer we talked about in the first episode, the player at the piano. Every input from your day eventually gets translated into a signal that arrives at your genes and asks them to do something, or to stop doing something, or to do it differently than they did yesterday. Today I want to walk you through exactly how that happens. Not because you need to memorize the biology, but because once you understand the pathways, you will start to notice them in your own day. And that noticing is where the real work begins. This is Alter Health, the medicine nobody told you about. And I'm Dr. Nicola Schmitz, and today we are going to follow your day all the way into your cells. Let me tell you about someone I worked with last year. The shape of his life will be familiar to a lot of you. He was in his mid-50s, he ran his own business, and he was the kind of man who had read the books, watched the podcasts, taken the courses. He believed in his health, and he invested in his health. He could not understand why his health was sliding. His mornings, he thought, was where he had it figured out. He woke up at 5:30, drank a large glass of water with lemon, did 20 minutes of meditation, had a green smoothie with collagen powder, frozen berries, spinach, and a scoop of plant protein. He took his supplements, magnesium, omega-3s, vitamin D, B-complex, methylated folate. He went to the gym, lifted weights for 45 minutes. Then he came home, showered, and was at his desk by 8. He was, by every wellness metric, doing the work. Now let me walk you through the rest of his day, the part he had not thought about as carefully. From 8 in the morning until about 7 in the evening, he was on calls. Some of them were stressful. His team was in crisis mode about a big project. He was managing investors, and he was making decisions involving large amounts of money under time pressure. He ate lunch at his desk while answering emails. And his lunch was, by his own admission, often a protein bar or a sandwich. He drank 3 to 4 espressos through the day, and he never went outside. His office had a beautiful view, but the windows didn't open and he did not actually look at the view. He had a stand-up desk that he didn't stand at. He was, in physical terms, sitting and tense from 8 until 7. In the evenings, he had dinner with his family. He loved his family. Dinner was usually pleasant, but by the time he sat down, he was so wired from the day that his body was still in full work mode. He would eat fast. He would check his phone between bites, and he would still be on edge about a decision he had to make the next morning. After dinner, he would have a glass of wine, sometimes 2, to come down, and he would watch something on television to switch off. He would go to bed around 11 and lie awake for 40 minutes thinking about work. And then he would sleep about 6 hours, sometimes less. And he did this 5 days a week, every week, for years. When he came to me, his blood work was starting to look wrong. His blood sugar was creeping up. His inflammatory markers were elevated. Testosterone had been dropping for 2 years, and he was gaining weight around the middle, even though he hadn't changed his diet. He was, in his own words, doing everything right and getting punished for it. I asked him at one point in our first long conversation when he had last felt actually rested, not slept, rested. The way you feel after a long weekend in the mountains or 3 days at the sea without your phone. He thought about it for a long time, and he couldn't remember. Somewhere around 2018, he said eventually. Maybe a trip to Italy that year. Since then, every vacation had been a vacation in name only. He had brought his laptop, he had checked in twice a day, he hadn't been off the leash, even when the leash was 1,000 kilometers long, for almost 7 years. I asked him what he had given up over those years to keep the business growing, and he didn't want to answer at first. Then it came out. He had stopped reading novels, something he had loved since he was a teenager. He had stopped seeing his oldest friends regularly, and he hadn't been to a concert in 5 years. He used to sail on weekends, which he loved, and he hadn't been on a boat in 3 summers. His wife and he had stopped having the long, late dinners they used to have because he was always too tired by 9. And he hadn't noticed any of this consciously. The things had just dropped out, one by one, replaced by work. And he wasn't entirely wrong about his health work. He really was doing many things right. The morning routine was genuinely supportive. The exercise was real, the supplements were not pointless, and the water with lemon was also fine. And here's what he hadn't understood. The morning routine took about 90 minutes of his day. The rest of his day, 11 or 12 hours, was a steady stream of signals into his body that contradicted almost everything the morning had done. His cells were receiving the smoothie. They were also receiving 12 hours of stress chemistry, blood sugar spikes from quick food, no daylight, no movement, and a body that never came out of alert. The cells didn't know which signals to listen to, so they did what cells do. They averaged. They responded to the totality of the day. And the totality of his day was tilted by a wide margin toward the wiring up, not toward the morning routine. This is the conversation I want to have with you today. Not about morning routines, about the rest of your day. Because the rest of your day is where the actual information enters your cells. So how does your day actually reach your cells? I want to give you a simple framework. There are 4 main doors through which the outside world enters your inside world. 4 doors that information from your life uses to find your DNA. Once you know these 4 doors, you can look at any moment in your day and ask, which door is this coming through and what is it bringing with it? The first door is the bloodstream. This is the most obvious one. Everything you eat, you drink, every breath of air you take, every substance that crosses your skin or your gut wall ends up in the blood. The blood carries it everywhere. Within minutes, the molecules in your blood are bathing every cell in your body. Some of those molecules are nutrients, the raw materials your cells need to do their work. Some of them are toxins, things your liver will have to process and eliminate. And some of them are messengers, hormones and signaling molecules. The blood is a delivery service that visits every cell roughly every minute, and what it delivers depends on what you have given it. So when the man I just told you about drank his green smoothie, his blood received a wave of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, plant compounds, and protein building blocks. His cells received that wave. 3 hours later, when he ate a protein bar at his desk between meetings, his blood received a wave of refined sugar, processed fats, artificial sweeteners, and emulsifiers. His cells received that wave too. Both waves arrived. The cells didn't get to choose. The second door is your nerves. The door doesn't deliver substances. It delivers signals. When something happens to you, anything from a loud noise to a tense email to a loving touch, your nervous system processes that event and sends out chemical messages within seconds. Stress hormones, calming hormones, neurotransmitters. These messages travel almost instantly to every part of your body, including your immune cells, your gut, your reproductive organs, and your DNA repair systems. This is the door that most people underestimate the most, because we tend to think of stress as a feeling. It's not a feeling, it's a chemical event. When you are stressed, your body is releasing measurable substances that physically alter what your cells are doing. And when you are at peace, the opposite chemicals are circulating, telling your cells they are safe and can do their long-term work of repair and maintenance. This door is open all day long. Every interaction, every thought, memory, every news article you read sends a small chemical message into your bloodstream. Most of these messages are small, but they add up. The third door is your hormones. And hormones are a layer that sits between the nerves and the cells. They are made in glands like the thyroid, the adrenals, the ovaries or the testes, the pancreas. They travel through the blood and they tell cells in a slow, deliberate language what to do over hours and days and weeks. Your nerves speak in seconds. The hormonal system speaks in days. Both are talking to your cells, and both shape what your DNA does. Hormones are deeply influenced by everything else, by your sleep, because most of your hormones reset at night, by your stress, because chronic activation suppresses reproductive and thyroid hormones over time, by your food, because some foods strongly affect insulin and other key hormones, by your light exposure, because light controls melatonin and through it much of your circadian rhythm, by your environment, because many modern chemicals act like hormones in your body and confuse the signaling. Hormones don't work in isolation. They are a chorus, and the chorus changes its song based on every other input. And the fourth door, the one that almost nobody thinks about, is your microbiome. Stay with me, because this is the part I really want you to take home from this episode. Inside your gut, right now, there are roughly 100 trillion bacteria. Some estimates put the number higher. They are not just sitting in there, they are alive. And they are eating, they are reproducing, and they are competing with each other. They are dying, they are producing chemicals, and they outnumber the cells of your own body, depending on how you count, by something like 1-to-1 or even slightly more. You are, in terms of total cell count, about half human and half microbiome. For most of medical history, we thought of these bacteria as passengers, and we thought they helped a little with digestion, maybe made some vitamins. Beyond that, they were just there, riding along. That picture turned out to be deeply wrong. In the last 20 years, the research has shifted dramatically. The microbiome is not a passenger. It is a co-pilot. It produces every single day an enormous number of chemicals that enter your bloodstream and influence your body. Short-chain fatty acids that calm inflammation, neurotransmitters, including a significant portion of your serotonin, which is largely made in the gut, not the brain. Substances that influence your immune system, your mood, your appetite, your hormone balance. Substances that talk directly to your epigenome. that tell your DNA in chemical language what kind of world you are living in. Think about that for a second. The bacteria in your gut are speaking to your genes, not in a poetic way, in a measurable chemical way. They are sending signals up to your DNA through the bloodstream. And what they say depends on what you feed them, what stress you put them under, what medications you have taken, what antibiotics you took as a child, what toxins you're exposed to, even what your mother's microbiome was like when she gave birth to you. Let me give you one specific example, because I think it makes this very real. When you eat fiber, the kind of fiber that humans cannot actually digest, your bacteria can digest it. They eat it. When they eat it, they produce substances called short-chain fatty acids, the most studied of which is called butyrate. Butyrate does several things. It feeds the cells lining your colon. It calms inflammation throughout your body. And here's the part that matters most for this episode. Butyrate directly influences how tightly your DNA is wrapped around the spools we talked about in the first episode. Remember the library image, the books on the shelves versus the books in the basement. Butyrate is one of the things that helps decide which books are accessible. So the bacteria in your gut, by eating fiber, are physically rearranging which of your genes are available to be read. If you don't eat enough fiber, your bacteria don't produce enough butyrate. And if you don't produce enough butyrate, certain genes related to inflammation control and immune regulation start to be less well managed. Over years, this is not a small thing. This is one of the reasons why diets rich in vegetables and whole foods are associated with lower rates of so many chronic conditions. Not because vegetables are magical, because the bacteria that thrive on vegetables produce chemicals that talk to your DNA in helpful ways. Let me give you a second example, because this one matters for a lot of women in particular, and for men too in a slightly different way. Your microbiome plays a major role in how your body handles estrogen. There's a specific group of gut bacteria called the estrogen that produces an enzyme that interacts with estrogen as it moves through your gut. When this community is healthy and balanced, estrogen gets properly cleared from the body. When it's out of balance, estrogen can get reactivated in the gut and re-enter the bloodstream, leading to higher overall estrogen exposure than your liver intended. Over time, this matters. It's one of the lesser-known reasons why gut health is connected to hormone-related conditions like endometriosis, fibroids, certain cycle problems in women, and in men, things like gynecomastia and lower testosterone. The gut isn't just doing digestion. The gut is doing hormonal regulation every day in the background of your life. So when I say you are roughly half human and half microbe, I don't mean it as a curiosity. I mean it as a recognition that one of the most important conversations happening in your body every day is the conversation between you and the microbial community living inside you. And that conversation is being shaped by what you do, what you eat, what you take in. Your daily life is, in part, an instruction set for the trillions of bacteria that are speaking to your genes on your behalf. This is why I take gut health so seriously in my work, not because it's fashionable, because it's one of the most overlooked doors through which your life enters your cells. Let me come back to the man I told you about earlier, because I want you to see how the 4 doors framework changed our conversation. When he came to me, he was focused entirely on door number 1, the bloodstream. He was watching what he ate. He was taking supplements. He was drinking the right water. He was in his head optimizing the inputs to his blood. And he was getting punished for it, as he put it. What he hadn't noticed was that the other 3 doors in his day were wide open and letting in signals that were completely overwhelming what door 1 was bringing in. Door 2 was in alert mode for 11 hours a day. His cells were being bathed in stress chemistry almost continuously from 8 in the morning until late at night. The morning meditation was real, but it was a 40-minute pause in the middle of an otherwise non-stop activation. Door number 3, hormones, was being shaped by chronic short sleep and chronic stress. His cortisol was high in the evenings when it should have been falling. His testosterone was dropping because his body was prioritizing crisis hormones over building hormones. His insulin was running on a constant low-grade overdrive because of the steady stream of caffeine, sugary snacks between meetings, and tension all working together. Door 4, his microbiome was being quietly damaged. The protein bars contained emulsifiers that disrupt gut bacteria. The lack of variety in his food meant his bacterial community had become limited and one-dimensional. The constant stress was reducing the diversity of his gut population, and the alcohol in the evenings was a final blow to a microbiome that was already strained. So when I sat down with him, we didn't change his morning routine. The morning routine was fine. We changed how the rest of his day looked at the 4 doors. For door 2, we found 3 real pauses in his day. Not a 40-minute meditation, 3 small windows of 3 to 5 minutes each, where he stepped outside, looked at something far away, and let his body calm down. We worked on how he ended his workday, so that there was actually a transition between work brain and home brain. We worked on a slower evening routine that allowed his body to start producing the right hormones for sleep. For door 3, we addressed the sleep first. 6 hours was not enough for a man under his level of demand. Within a few weeks of getting closer to 8, his cortisol pattern began to shift. The morning ones came up, the evening ones came down. His sleep got deeper, his testosterone over a few months started to climb. And for door 4, we shifted his lunches. Not dramatic changes, just real food, with vegetables eaten away from his desk when possible. We added fermented fruits 3 to 4 times a week. We took the alcohol down to 2 or 3 glasses a week instead of 7. And we added specific support for his gut for a few months while it rebuilt. We also did something else. Something that didn't show up in any door directly, but turned out to matter as much as everything else combined. We brought back 2 of the things he had dropped. He started reading novels again 20 minutes before bed instead of television. He started sailing 1 Saturday a month with an old friend. 2 small changes. The novel reading became the slowest part of his nervous system day, every single day. The sailing became the 1 window each month where he was off the leash for 6 hours straight, with no phone, with the wind, with somebody who had known him before he was a CEO. Both of those changes were sending signals through doors 2, 3, and 4 that no supplement could have sent. 6 months later, his blood work looked different. His weight had started moving in the right direction. His energy was back, his mood was steadier, and he told me almost angrily, "Why did nobody tell me about the rest of my day? I have been working on my morning for a decade." This is, I think, the most common story in the wellness space. People work very hard on the visible, optimizable parts of the day, and they don't look at the rest of the day with the same level of attention. And the rest of the day is where most of the actual information enters their cells. I want to give you something practical to take away from this episode. Not a protocol, not a list of products. A way of looking. This week, just for the rest of this week, try this small exercise. At 3 points in your day, pause for 30 seconds and ask yourself which of the 4 doors is open right now and what is it bringing in? Morning, middle of the day, evening. Door 1, the bloodstream. What have I put into my body in the last few hours? Food, drink, anything else? Is it nourishing, or is it loading me up with something that will take energy to clean up? Door 2, the nerves. Where is my body on the scale between alert and calm right now? Am I in fight or flight, even subtly? Or am I actually in regulation? What is sending the signals? Door 3, hormones. What patterns am I living in that are shaping my hormones? Sleep, light, stress, food timing. Are these patterns building me up or wearing me down? Door 4, the microbiome. What have I been feeding the trillions of cells that are not me, but are talking to me? Variety, fiber, real food, or processed and limited? You don't need to fix anything yet. You just need to notice. Most people have never paused to look at their day through these 4 doors. The looking itself is the first work. Once you can see what is coming in, you can start to make decisions. This framework is what the rest of the season will build on. The next episodes go into the 6 biggest inputs that shape what comes through these doors: stress, sleep, food, movement, environment, and relationship. Each one of those episodes will land more clearly because you now have a picture of how those inputs actually enter your body. Before I close, I want to plant a small seed for the next week, because next week is the most important single episode of this entire season, and I want you to come into it with the right setup. Everything I have just described, all 4 doors, eventually arise at one particular machinery in your cells. A machinery that takes the signals from your bloodstream, your nerves, your hormones, and your microbiome, and translates them into actual decisions about which of your genes get louder and which get quieter. This machinery is called methylation. It's the most important everyday mechanism in your epigenome. It is also the machinery that most often goes wrong in people who feel tired, foggy, hormonally off, mildly depressed, or stuck in a slow decline they cannot quite name. Next Tuesday, we're going to walk through exactly what methylation is, what it does, what supports it, what wrecks it, and how a 40-something woman with fatigue and brain fog and weight gain almost certainly has a methylation story to tell. If you have been feeling not quite right and not knowing why, next week is for you. So that is where I want to lead you today, with the 4 doors, with the man who was working hard on door 1 and ignoring doors 2, 3, and 4, with the trillions of bacteria in your gut who are, right now, talking to your DNA on your behalf, with the picture of your day not as a series of separate events, but as a continuous flow of information into your cells. If you take one thing from this episode, let it be this: the rest of your day matters more than the morning routine. The boring 11 hours between breakfast and bedtime are where most of the information actually enters your body. Optimize those, and the morning routine becomes the small finishing touch. Optimize only the morning, and the rest of the day will overwhelm everything you did before 9. If you are someone who wants to understand this material at a level where you can actually use it, I do train epigenetic coaches in this work as a practical, grounded training in how to read a body's epigenetic landscape and help change it. If that sounds like something you want to explore, the link to book a conversation with me is in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I will see you next Tuesday, because health is a choice.